Welcome everyone to WCU Entertainment Review. My name is Jimmy, here with Dylan, who is like lettuce on a plate of chicken fingers. He just doesn't matter. Now, Dylan, we're going to talk about some stuff today, whether it be baseball with video games, Tomorrowland with movies, and cops with TV shows. Now, have you ever been arrested?
No. And if they can't find the evidence, it's not a crime.
Exactly. Let's just send it to games.
They know nothing.
And welcome over here to the green screen. I'm here with Dylan, who is like... Oh, wait, we already did this joke. Never mind. Let's keep rolling. Anyway, Dylan, today we're going to be talking about a little baseball. And as, you know, the Phillies season has started, and they suck, you know, we're going to talk about the MLB the Show, which is basically the only baseball game on the market right now because 2K Sports, which we talked about last week with WWE, 2K15, has actually discontinued the 2K baseball series.
Didn't they get in some legal trouble for that? Like there was some kind of licensing fees, or am I thinking of a college?
You're thinking of college.
Yeah.
The reason this happened was basically because their game was awful. So MLB the Show has actually been a very strong game for the last couple of years. The graphics have always been above and beyond. Even when it was on the PS3, which is where it started to grow in popularity, and it always has been very good with its Road to the Show part of it, the franchise mode that they've always had, and they've even broken it down to having just allowing you to do a season, which some people like. The biggest problem I foresee with the series, though, is something we've talked about a lot on this show, is the inability for creating new things, new concepts, getting people back into the game.
It's also the issue of it has to be, it's an issue that we've been running into with all sports games in general and more popular games, is they have to have a yearly sports game. There has to be MLB 2015-16. That does not give enough time to develop new stuff or better stuff.
Well, you don't even have to develop new stuff because there is a point where you can't really develop new things. What you can do is update things that have been there for years. You know, franchise mode, for example. There are things in that mode that can be incredibly updated. There's players in there who will, can change their skill level in terms of days instead of,
months
years.
Or years. Yeah.
You know, people in their 30, have players who don't always decline at the age of 37, have extraordinary players, things they can do to kind of update and make
it more
signing players more realistic. Yeah, make it more realistic and make it better to play with. And that's probably the biggest problem with the game, where a lot of MLB, the WWE game we were talking about last week,
the
NBA has
games
been pretty good about making sure they've updated this, but these systems have all had this problem where they sit there and they start these big games off and they just struggle to try to update the stuff they already have by trying to kind of update the online mode. And the biggest thing I think is it wouldn't be a big deal if we weren't on the PS4 and Xbox One era. Now this game's only for PS4, but we're on the new generation of consoles, and I think gamers are getting kind of tired of these games coming out and not adding anything, not feeling like it's really different from what we had at the previous console.
It's a running theme of there's just no point to buy the new. If you haven't bought it, don't buy the new stuff.
Yeah,
there's just no point.
I mean, I brought it up before, and I'll say it again. PS2, there was the Grand Theft Auto 3, and I've always considered that the moment where gamers realized the PS2 was different than PS1. It was that game that really just set it apart from every other game in PS1. And until the PS4 is able to do this, they're going to have problems. And and I don't see them doing it right now.
Well, the closest they got to it was Bloodborne.
And I would probably say the one that I'm probably looking at right now would probably be the Batman Arkham Knight game. That they have actually pulled that back from releasing early, and they're not releasing on the PS3. So hopefully, they don't have the problems trying to transition both systems.
It's going to sell like hotcakes.
It's going to sell well, but we'll see if they do a good job of updating it for the new system. But I think that's enough baseball for today, so let's send it back to the desk. Well, that was MLB the Show 15 for video games. Next, we're going to head off to television to talk about cops. Hopefully, Dylan doesn't get arrested between segments, but we'll see how that goes. And we're here at the TV panel. I'm here with Erica, Dylan, and Courtney. And we're going to be talking about cop shows today. So, cop shows are kind of always been around. It's been kind of what they always even back to the 50s were always popular. And, my favorite is always Law & Order SVU, but, you still have CIS, NCIS, which aren't really cop shows in name, but
they're cop shows.
They're cop shows.
Yeah.
Same method of doing the show. And, basically it's kind of a show that these type of shows have kind of kept growing and changing. And Eric, why do you think they're kind of as strong as they've always been?
Well, I think that, ever since you said, in the 50s and the 60s, the idea of a cop drama or, a Law & Order sort of show has always had a lot of viewers. Mm-hmm. And I think that those type of shows attract a lot of great writers, too. So when you have great writers, you're going to have great material. And when you have great material, you're going to have a lot of viewers. So it's a really good formula. And, I watch tons of, cop dramas, law dramas. So I'm always looking for a new one that's coming out or an old one that I can rewatch.
That's true, and kind of when we're talking about material, it's kind of easy to do material when, especially Law & Order SVU, they do a lot of their shows based off of real life events. So stuff like when the Michael Jackson trial was going on, they did a show about where they do enough that they twist names and stuff to where it's clearly what they're talking about, but it's not for legal reasons.
They're very pop culture focused.
Yeah.
Or not pop culture, just current events.
Very true. Now, Courtney, what do you think about cop shows? Do you think they're a fad, or do you think that the fad will eventually die down and they'll kind of go away again, or?
Honestly, I think cop shows are here to stay forever. Like you mentioned before, they've been around since TV shows started. And now cop shows, you have your typical ones like CSI, Law & Order. Broadchurch is one I really like. It's a British cop show. But then you have ones that branch out, like Grimm, which is fantasy-based. And then you have Sherlock, which is based off of Sherlock Holmes stories. But it's kind of made into a modern cop drama.
Kind of like Sleepy Hollow, which we've talked about before.
Right,
That's a cop show.
It's kind of based all around the idea of cop shows.
I also think that there's always, the laws are always changing. There's always new crimes that are being committed. So they always have new material. And when in doubt, you can go back to older episodes and have those victims come back, or there's always more material that you can use and the material will never run out.
Or you could be like Law & Order SVU and use the same characters, the same actors and different characters.
Yes.
I don't
Every
think
10
anybody's
years they
noticed.
can come back and guest
Not even
star.
10 years. It's
Ice-T will always be in money.
But then
Yeah.
there's always seasons. There's these seasons where, if you go back and watch, USA Network always replays Law & Order SVU. And there's episodes where, a guy is, in one show is, a nice little bar owner, and the next episode he's a pedophile. There are these weird episode breaks where, they'll shoot them out of order. So, these guys are, played off so differently, but I find them hilarious.
No, and they also, when it comes to guest stars, I know Hayden Panettiere played, a little girl, and then, 5 years later, she was a teenager, and they had her come back.
Yeah, she did. Yeah, that is
So
true.
they do a lot of, they bring back, celebrity guest stars, for current episodes, even though they already played characters, 10 years ago.
But, cop shows are, a good evolution. If you start with, the early cop shows, or you're staying in the 50s, there's, the themes and stuff evolved from, in the 50s, 60s, the cops were always the good guys. And it was always, clear-cut cases. 60s, 70s, it started getting more into what the 70s were about, disco and Miami a lot. A lot of Miami stuff. 80s was more about, the drama and stuff, and less about the actual cop doing stuff with, the mustaches. I forget what the show is exactly, but
Miami Vice?
Miami Vice, but the whole mustaches and
Starsky and Hutch.
Starsky and Hutch, yeah, good example of Starsky and Hutch. It's the characterization of cops. 90s they kind of died, but 90s 2000s it was stuff like Psych and Monk and
Yeah, but you also had Law & Order. Basically.
yeah, Law and Order always exists.
And then when you look at Law & Order, they have so many different
to cover different
branches
things.
of Law & Order.
They did. Now it's basically down to SVU. Because the crime investigators, that one didn't work out. Trial by jury didn't work out. It kind of Law & Order SVU is kind of like the standard bearer right now because it's on its eighth. It's on
I
its
think it's
18th or 16th or 15th season, and they've had character changes. Characters have left.
Themes have changed. It started out being more about information, and it got more shocker focused.
Yeah, there was always that episode where the one I've always go back to. There's this episode where there's they infiltrate this Nazi group.
Oh, I remember
and
that
they had
one.
this courtroom
With Star,
shockout.
yeah.
And I was didn't see that one coming.
No.
Pop out of nowhere.
Yeah.
It's I'm hooked. But that type of show is definitely going to be where this whole thing is going. And I'm hoping that they bring back Elliot Stabler to the cast at some point, but that's just me.
That would really make me happy as
It
well.
would make people happy, yes.
But we're going to send it back to the desk up front with me and Dylan, or this desk that we're sitting in. Well, that segment gave us 25 to life, if you know what I mean. So let's send it over to movies with Tomorrowland. Welcome back to the movie desk. I'm here with Courtney, Erica, and Dylan again, and we're going to talk about the movie Tomorrowland. Now, Erica, you're the one who brought this movie to our attention, so go.
Well, as you've been kind of saying, it's been really slow when it comes to movie news. So I guess Tomorrowland is based off of the Disney Channel, not the Disney Channel Park, the Disney World Park. It's a section of a Magic Kingdom, so it can either go in the direction of Haunted Mansion, which is also the Magic Kingdom, or in the direction of Pirates of the Caribbean, where it gets sequels and stuff. So I'm going to be really interested to see where they take it. No one really knows what it's about. They just know that George Clooney and Julie are in it, so I feel like it can kind of go in any sort of direction.
Well, all I know is that if it goes towards Haunted Mansion, this movie's in trouble.
Yeah, well, let's see if something like Haunted Mansion can actually kill George Clooney's career.
Well, Eddie Murphy killed his own career. I think Norbit did that for him. But that's just my opinion. Courtney, now, I'm sure you've seen like all the Pirates of the Caribbean, and you've seen Haunted Mansion, these type of movies. Do you think doing movies based off the rides is a good idea?
I don't know. Haunted Mansion is just terrible. Let's all get that out there. But the first Pirates of the Caribbean was actually really good. And then they just kind of killed it by having 3 sequels. So I don't really know. I mean, Tomorrowland, it's basically all special effects from looking at the different trailers and stuff. The cast is really good. And the director, Brad Bird, who wrote the script too, is also the writer, director of The Incredibles, which for me is my favorite Pixar movie. And I think a lot of people's favorite Pixar movie. So like, it has a lot of good people behind the scenes, but I don't know. I just feel like Disney just kind of pulls from their own parks. It's like, all right, Haunted Mansion, we're going to make a movie about that. Pirates of the Caribbean, yeah. Like, there's no original
Makes you worry
concept.
a little bit.
Yeah, exactly.
I heard that the original, I guess, idea for Tomorrowland, like the park, came from like a society that Walt Disney wanted to be like wanted to create. So I feel like if it went down that route, which looking at the trailers, it might.
Yeah.
It could be really good, but I think that, like you said, like Disney knows it can make money off of creating bad or really good movies off of their rides. So it can, like, I feel like there's no middle ground when it comes to it. It can either be really, really good or it's going to be really, really bad.
I mean, either way, it's going to increase interest in the Tomorrowland
Of course,
theme park.
yeah. You're going to get people, like, and also they probably will, like, redo that part of the park, create new rides. So there's more
merchandising.
Yeah, there's more benefits for Disney by doing it that way.
Well, that's the funny thing is, one of their biggest attractions at the park, Splash Mountain, is actually based off a movie they won't release anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's based off
Song of the South. Yeah.
Which,
they're never going to touch that again.
They really shouldn't.
I think they're denying that they actually made it.
no, it's just it's one of those things that
They
won't-
don't-
It's
they
uncomfortable. It's one of those uncomfortable moments, which is, really realistically, they probably should release it and kind of act as if it's
Oh, it's history.
sit there and explain why it was made,
Right.
why the choices were made that they were, because it's kind of like there's this Donald Duck cartoon where he's a Nazi.
Yep.
And he's screaming Hail Hitler over and over again.
Well, that was like anti-Nazi propaganda.
Yeah, but it was just the way if you watch it, it's really weird to watch Donald Duck doing a Nazi salute. But Song of the South is kind of like that too, where it's kind of like it's one of those things that it's a part of history. I can understand why they made decisions that they made, and I don't really know how racist it really is, but I think that there's definitely questionable things said and done in that movie.
Definitely.
But to get us back on topic, the thing about doing the movies about rides is like they're doing them based on like a theme park ride. They're not doing it based on a story. Like Pirates of the Caribbean was never based on a story. It was kind of just made it up.
Well, Pirates of the Caribbean is about pirates, so
Yeah.
there's kind of something there. But Tomorrowland, like the theme area itself, is just about future tech from the 50s.
Yeah,
That's just it.
Tomorrowland exists in Disneyland as well, and then the one in Disney World obviously is copied off of the one in Disneyland. But Disneyland opened in the 50s, and when you go to Tomorrowland, a lot of the crazy inventions are
From the 50s.
Yeah, exactly.
And well, that's like there is no really plot to Tomorrowland, and like when you walk into the park, it's where like the aliens are, it's where the Incredibles
Space
are.
Mountain.
Yeah, it's where space is when it comes to Magic Kingdom.
Yeah.
So
And that's kind of one of the things I think
Yeah.
that needs to be said about like these when they do these type of rides and stuff, and they try to build off a story around them. Like we've all sat there and said, while we've been sitting here, like, what's Tomorrowland about? And we don't really know the exact plot. And I think it's kind of, that's going to hinder it in its release. Be like, this is one of those movies where I don't know if it's going to do really great because, one, the timing of it's really, like, and that it's coming right after the Avengers, which is kind of weird because Disney owns both movies. So you think they've kind of spread that out a little bit, but that's just my opinion. But I think it's going to be one of those movies that they might have problems with.
Well, I mean, I was just in Disney like 4 months ago, and there was no advertisements for it.
There's
There was
two
nothing.
trailers.
I didn't even know that it was a thing until I looked up movie news and I saw that it.
Yeah, I didn't know
was
about
happening.
it until you said something to me about it. And, you know, if they don't really kind of promote these movies correctly, they're going to have problems because that's kind of one of those weird movies that, you know, it's
So
going to...
it'll definitely be interesting to see how it goes.
I'm thinking that they're probably going to do one big media push before it comes out because if they don't,
Probably soon.
nobody knows about it.
Yeah.
There's 2 trailers. It doesn't say anything. It just shows George Clooney, and that's how they're selling it.
That's what they're riding on. They're riding on the power of George Clooney. I mean,
And-
let's be real.
He does have a lot of power, but I don't
He
know if
does.
he has that much.
Yeah.
Hey, unless there's some bat nipples on that movie, I'm not interested. But we got to kind of close this show up because I don't really have a reason.
You don't have classes.
I'm just ready for the show to end.
We all go to school.
It's true. I have a paper to do. There's your reasoning. So, anybody have anything interesting to say before we close out?
I want to see a bat credit card in that movie.
Clearly, you don't have anything interesting to say. Courtney?
I hope Tomorrowland doesn't flop, but I feel like Avengers Age of Ultron will just take over everything
It's
in a couple
true.
weeks.
Erica?
I'm just excited to see where it goes.
Okay. We'll call this a day then. We will see you next week.